Good afternoon. This is the regular September 23rd, 2025 meeting of the Santa Barbara City Council. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Harmon.
Here.
Councilmember Santa Maria. Councilmember Sneddon.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Friedman.
Here.
Councilmember Gutierrez. Councilmember Jordan.
Here.
And Mayor Rouse.
Here, and I will note that Councilmember Gutierrez extends his regrets, but he had a family emergency which took him out of town for the day, so he will not be participating. All right, very good. With that, are there changes to the agenda, Madam Administrator?
No changes at this time, Mayor.
Thank you. And Mr. Clerk, do you have some items to read?
I do. Item 2, subject 2025 to 2027 Fire Management Association Bargaining Unit Memorandum of Understanding and Amendment of Resolution Number 25-071, the Position and Salary Control Resolution for fiscal year 2026. Recommendation that Council adopt by reading of title only, a resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara adopting the 2025 through 2027 Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Santa Barbara and the Santa Barbara Fire Management Association, and adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara amending Resolution Number 25-071, the Position and Salary Control Resolution for fiscal year 2026, affecting the salaries of certain classifications in the Fire Management Association effective September 23rd, 2025.
Is that it? All right, very good. Are there any items that anybody in council needs to pull for discussion or separate vote? And is there anyone online to do that? I have no public speakers there for that.
No, Mr. Mayor.
With that, I will entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
So move.
Moved by Friedman,
Second.
second by Santa Maria. All right, may we have the vote, please?
I have a motion from Councilmember Freeman, seconded by Councilmember Santa Maria to approve the consent calendar as recommended. Go ahead and vote, please.
And unanimous by all present, Oscar Gutierrez being absent. Thank you. All right, very good. With that, we'll move on to general public comment, and this is for items that are not on today's agenda. We'll have 3 minutes at the podium for things that are within the purview of this body. With that, we will start with Jeff Schaefer.
Mayor Rouse, members of the City Council, good to see you all. I'm here to kind of represent and talk about commercially sexually exploited children. I think some of you probably have already gotten an email from one of our Westmont students related to having kind of a conversation with you related to this topic. A lot of you have been around since a lot of work on homelessness and have seen how when I started working within the homelessness field in 2005, there was no professional case management, no coordinated entry, no vulnerability index. And after the county and the federal government and all of us started working together, now there's a lot of systems in place which include at least 4 professional case management teams related to people experiencing homelessness across the county. So if you're experiencing homelessness in Santa Barbara, the opportunity for you to have a case manager is pretty high. But when it comes to kids that are being sexually exploited, so we're talking about what we call CSECI, commercially sexually exploited children and youth. Currently, there's no point of contact case manager directly available for them. So there's some great partners and there's some great work being done, but we are in the midst of creating a 3-year action plan in coordination with NOAA's Anchorage. We've helped them hire a part-time case manager directly at NOAA's to begin to case manage some of these kids, collect data, figure out good outcomes, and we'll be coming to the City Council at least once a month, but we're also inviting City Council members to kind of inform our plan and how it might best affect Santa Barbara City. I'll let you know some brief data. NOAA's Anchorage has worked with 71 in 2025, 71 kids and youth, and they've had to do the first responder ID tool, which means there's a suspicion of trafficking or exploitation happening. 24 of those young people were high. Expectation 14 were medium, and they've done 19 SCAR, suspected child abuse reports. So it is an issue related in our city. So I would really invite you as soon as possible to reply to that email so that we can integrate your thoughts as far as the city council into our plan. And I really appreciate all the work you do in the city related to making sure the most vulnerable are served. So I just want to let you know I also appreciate all your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Joy Sturgis.
Mr. Mayor Rose, members of the City Council, and members of the public, my name is Joy Sturgis, and I'm a resident of Santa Barbara, and I'm here today on behalf of Santa Barbara's Neighborhood Action Collaborative and SAFE, the Strategic Alliance to Fight Exploitation. For the past 10 years, my father has worked in group homes with youth, many of them girls who have been victims of trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation. Over the years, I've heard countless stories from him, some quite silly, like the time he came home with the full set of press-on nails. He had to soak them in acetone for hours to get them off, and let's just say he never quite looked at fake nails the same way again. But most of the stories I've heard are painful reminders of a broken system. These young girls are often caught in ongoing cycles of trauma, addiction, and that the possibility for full recovery is severely diminished, and very few actually graduate out of these programs, especially the ones that my dad worked in. That's why I'm here, to ask you to take a serious look at the 3-year action plan that Jeff was just talking about, developed by SB, NAC, and SAFE under the local nonprofit Kingdom Causes. Their approach focuses not just on recovery, but prevention. Instead of waiting to intervene until after a child has been exploited, the plan proposes real, proactive strategies to reach at-risk youth before they become survivors of exploitation, such as through the Noah's Anchorage case worker that they are working to hire. They are currently fundraising for this current critical position, so I'd like to ask you respectfully to support this work. If maybe you could share this flyer, which has work about what SAFE is doing, and a QR code that leads to direct funding of helping fundraise for this critical position at Noah's Anchorage. Thank you for your ongoing efforts and for your time and for helping make Santa Barbara a safer place for all of our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Brianne Thomas.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, thank you for all the decisions and work you do to protect those children who are vulnerable to exploitation. My name is Bryony Thomas, and I actually am the Interfaith Collaborative Leader working with the Human Trafficking Task Force of the county, and our job is to help coordinate different faith communities to be involved in this work. And I wanted to let you know about an initiative that we've been working on called STAND. We all love acronyms in government work. And the S stands for See Something, Say Something. So it's the educational piece, knowing what to look for. There's so much misunderstanding about what sex trafficking and human trafficking looks like in our city. And then also the T is to take action and giving our community members actionable steps that they can take to help in these efforts. Then we have A, accept responsibility, and N, which is network and collaborate, which we're super thankful for all the work that you all have been doing, and then the many nonprofits and business leaders who take this seriously and want to do the prevention and the trauma-informed care for survivors. And then we have D, which is designate a representative. So I coordinate representatives from different faith communities so that they can be in the interplay between the work that's going on and their faith community so we can get more people involved. So thank you again. I just ask that when things come across your desk, that you will do all you can to support this ongoing work. And we look forward to a day where this is no longer an issue. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Are there any general public commenters online? Mr. Clerk.
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. With that, we will close general public comment and move on to our administrative item. I've got a number of announcements to make regarding this process. First of all, in terms of public comment on the item, public comment is for general public comment, disaffected or disinterested public comment. So for example, if you're here representing United number 11, you are an appellant. So you are going, if you would wish to still speak, it will be part of the 20-minute presentation for the appellant's budget. So you may want to consider what you want to do about that. And I think a number of you have signed on as United 11. So you will be a part, same thing for both parties. Both parties, if you're part of a team that represents either the appellant or the applicant, you must be part of the presentation, not as part of the general public comment. All right, so you may want to chat amongst yourself to make that clear on what you'd like to do. We will accept public speaker slips on this item for another 10 minutes, so until 25 after, both online and present. All right? So this is a quasi-judicial process. Everything is de novo, which means that it doesn't really follow the normal rules of evidence, and new evidence can be considered at a hearing such as this. We are, first of all, going to start out by asking if anyone on council has any ex parte contacts they'd like to disclose of in this process. Ms. Sneddon.
Thank you, Mayor Rouse. I did have a meeting with the appellants and constricted the conversation just to what is already in the documents, very specifically only what's in the documents.
Thank you. Ms. Harmon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very briefly, I spoke with Mr. Karnoff from Unite here just for about 30 seconds on the phone, only so long to inform him that I do not take ex partes on city council appeal matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Santa Maria.
Thank you, Mayor Rouse. I also met with Unite Here Local 11 to discuss the content of their appeal and strictly what was in the documents.
Thank you. Mr. Friedman.
Through email, I received a request to meet from the appellant, and via email, I explained that I do not take ex parte meetings on items, and so that was the extent of my ex parte.
Thank you. Mr. Jordan.
Same. I have nothing to report as I declined to meet with anybody from either side on this subject.
All right, very good. And I will disclose that I am familiar with the Parker family and also was part of council when we talked about the transfer room development rights from one property to the other back in, I believe it was 2016. So, very good. And with that, a couple of things here. As we proceed, we want to make sure that we understand that this is going to be as fair of a hearing as possible. We will avoid being on cell phones up here on the dais to take away any impression that we're not paying full attention to the process. So with that, we're going to start out with a staff presentation, and that'll be followed up by and anybody that from the, since it's a Planning Commission appeal, if anybody from Planning Commission is here to add into the staff presentation. And then we will have the presentation by the appellant following that. And after that, it'll be a presentation by the applicant. And then we'll go for questions from council. And from there, we'll entertain public comment. And once again, the public comment needs to be in parties that are not connected in either way with the applicant or the appellant, simply as an interested public party. All right, and with that, we will begin with staff presentation. Ms. Kennedy, I believe.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would like the clerk to read the item into the record
Oh,
since
that'd be
there's a
nice, wouldn't it?
resolution. Thanks.
Let's do that. Thank you.
So this is item 4, subject appeal of Planning Commission's approval of the 633 East Cabrillo Boulevard Hotel Expansion Project. Recommendation that council consider and deny the appeal filed by the Law Office of Jordan R. Sisson on behalf of Unite Here Local 11 of Planning Commission's approval of the 633 East Cabrillo Boulevard Hotel Expansion Project, and adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara denying the appeal of the Law Office of Jordan R. Sisson on behalf of Unite Here Local 11 and upholding the decision of the Planning Commission to approve the project at 633 East Cabrillo Boulevard.
All right, thank you, Mr. Clerk. And with that, we'll go on to staff presentation. Ms. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm Kathy Kennedy, project planner for this project. We could switch over to the presentation. Thank you. Again, this is an appeal hearing for the Hilton Santa Barbara Beachfront Resort Project. The purpose of the hearing is to consider the appeal of the Planning Commission's approval of the 633 East Cabrillo Boulevard Hotel Expansion Project. In summary, the Planning Commission approved the Hilton Hotel expansion project, which consists of, in summary, a net increase of 73 guest rooms and a net increase of 45,928 square feet. An appeal was filed by the Law Office of Jordan Sisson on behalf of Unite Here Local 11, which contends that the approval relied on an expired development agreement and failed to comply with coastal lower cost overnight accommodation policies. The evidence shows that the DA, the development agreement, has not expired and that the hotel expansion is consistent with lower cost overnight accommodation policies. Therefore, our recommendation is that the council deny the appeal and uphold the Planning Commission's approval. I'll go over the project briefly. I understand the architect is here for the project. We'll go into more detail, but I'd like to present a few slides regarding the project. Here's the project site at East Cabrillo Boulevard. It's the area outlined in yellow, the existing Hilton Hotel project. The area of the addition under appeal today is on the western side of the project site in this location. As part of the project, there'll be some demolition of this building here called Building A will be demolished. A portion of Building B will be demolished. The tennis courts will be removed and a reconfiguration of the parking area. And then there'll be an addition connected to this Building B here, extending to the west, a new 3-story building. Like I said, reconfiguration of the parking, and out front will be a new swimming pool and landscaping. Here's the photograph of the existing condition at the corner of South Calle Cesar Chavez, looking across the street at the Hilton Hotel. And then here's a photo simulation of the addition shown as it would look after being built. The discretionary actions made by the Planning Commission are listed here. A parking modification to allow less than the required number of vehicle and bicycle parking spaces. A development plan to allow construction of 2,810 square feet allocated from the minor and small addition categories. A development plan for the transfer of existing development rights, and we'll talk more about that. Coastal development permit, and then an addendum to a previously certified EIR. So these are the actions made by the Planning Commission. I'm only going to be discussing those that are relevant to the appeal today. The Planning Commission staff report does discuss these in great detail. I'd like to give you some background to help you understand a little bit more about the appeal issues. So in the 1970s, the Fess Parker family acquired about 33 acres of undeveloped waterfront property. And then in 1981, the City Council approved the Park Plaza Specific Plan, we call SP1, and also certified an EIR. This involved the subdivision to create 3 parcels, A, B, and C, and we'll be talking about those. Parcel A would allow a hotel and conference center. Parcels B at that time would not allow hotels, but would allow a public park or other facilities. In 1986, a 360-room hotel was constructed on Parcel A, and that's the project site for the existing Hilton Hotel. In 1994, the City Council approved an amended specific plan in EIR, and what that did is allow a luxury hotel to be on Parcel B. I had noted that hotels weren't allowed there before, but with this amended specific plan, the waterfront hotel would be allowed on Parcel B. And as part of that approval, they required that there was a requirement to provide lower cost overnight accommodations, in this case, a 100-bed hostel. And that was required in order to be consistent with the coastal policies. And then it also allowed the public park on Parcel C. So just to show you what this looks like here. So Area A, when we're talking about that, that's the existing Hilton Hotel. That's where the project site is. The waterfront hotel site is vacant. It's in Area B. This is an approved hotel, but not yet built. And then the Chase Palm Park area here has been developed into a park for the city. So there are development agreements that are relevant to this discussion. In 1996, there was a development agreement called Number 1, excuse me. is the original agreement between the city, sorry, and American Tradition, the Parker family, regarding this development of the waterfront hotel on that parcel B. The hotel had not yet been built, so a new development agreement was created in 2016, which was again approved by the City Council. This extended the timeline for the construction of the waterfront hotel. And the hotel had at that point a vested right to develop 142,647 square feet. As part of that development agreement, it was written in that if the waterfront hotel is reduced in size at any point, that excess square footage up to a certain amount could be transferred through our city's TEDR process. The reason why that is important is that we will get to sorry. A little glitch there. So the waterfront hotel was reduced. It was reduced in size to 97,948 square feet. Therefore, there is over 44,000 square feet available to be transferred. The Hilton Hotel, the project that you're reviewing today, has an expansion project that requests a transfer of 43,118 square feet from the waterfront hotel to the Hilton Hotel project. And that transfer is allowed per the 2016 development agreement. There's an applicable coastal policy that is referenced in the appeal, and I wanted to go over that, and this is very relevant to this project. And it's written verbatim here. As outlined in the Coastal Act, Section 30213, lower cost visitor and recreational facilities shall be protected, encouraged, and where feasible, provided. The city shall not require that overnight room rentals be fixed at an amount certain for any privately owned or operated hotel, motel, or other similar visitor-serving facility located on either public or private lands. And also may not establish or approve any method for the identification of low or moderate income persons for the purpose of determining eligibility for overnight room rentals in any such facilities. So when the waterfront hotel was approved, it was an obligation to provide lower cost overnight accommodations. And this was met by the hostel, which was ultimately constructed at 12 East Montecito Street. This was approved by the Planning Commission in 1995. After it was constructed, it was conveyed to a nonprofit group as required, and the hostel construction was completed in 2014. Wanted to reiterate that the obligation by the Waterfront Hotel to provide the lower cost was met, as documented in the development agreement, by the construction of this hostel. Therefore, it is not an obligation of the Hilton property to do so, and we'll discuss more about that. The development agreement in Section 11 states that in its review of any application to transfer development rights from the hotel parcel, in this case the waterfront, to the Fest Parker Hotel, which is the Hilton Hotel now, the city shall take into consideration and give appropriate credit to the Parker family for those fees, dedications, and public improvements made by the Parker family in satisfaction of its obligations under that development agreement number 1, including, and underlined here, without limitation, its provision of lower cost visitor accommodations through the development of the hostel. Therefore, as part of the process of transferring the square footage from the Waterfront Hotel to the Hilton Hotel, there is no obligation to provide additional lower cost visitor facilities. Now I will go into the appeal issues that have been raised. This one, like that. It's not working. I apologize for the glitch in this. It's not working. Okay. So the appeal arguments related to the development agreement are listed here, that the development agreement has expired, that the transfer of development rights application was not timely filed, and that the city failed to monitor the DEA and conditions. City's response to these appeal issues are that the development agreement has not expired, and actually there have been 5 extensions that have been granted. It is currently valid through December 23rd, 2027. The TEDR section is valid through 2029. This was brought up at the Planning Commission hearing. There was a question about that, and at that point, it was to expire December 23rd, 2025, so it's been recently extended again. The applicant did submit the TEDR application in a timely manner, and we have records of that in our project files, and the staff has consistently reviewed this waterfront hotel project. We've had numerous HLC, Planning Commission, building permit reviews since 2016, consistently reviewing this proposed project. So the appeal arguments related to their lower cost overnight accommodations is that the hostel is not operating as a lower cost overnight accommodation, that the credit for the hostel should not be given to the Hilton Hotel expansion project, and that the city did not consider mitigation for the additional 9 hotel rooms. The revised waterfront hotel was reduced by 64 rooms, but the Hilton Hotel added 73 rooms. Our response to the appeal issues include what the DA clearly states, which is that the obligation to provide the lower cost accommodations for the waterfront hotel project was met through the construction of the hostel and was not an obligation of the Hilton project. That the transfer of development rights involves the transfer of square footage and not rooms. It's not a room-for-room replacement. It's just for square footage. And when transferring the 43,000 plus square feet from the waterfront hotel to the Hilton Hotel, there is no obligation to provide additional lower-cost visitor facilities. In addition, just would like to note that the applicant has no requirement nor any ability to monitor or control the hostel operations. Therefore, staff's recommendation is that council deny the appeal and uphold the Planning Commission's approval and adopt by reading of title only a resolution denying the appeal and upholding the decision of the Planning Commission to approve the project at 633 East Cabrillo Boulevard. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Kennedy, appreciate that. And with that, we will move on to the presentation by the appellant. And also, please note in mind my comments earlier about anybody that was here to speak on behalf of Unite 11 will be included in your 20 minutes as opposed to general public comment.
Understood, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And I'll have 20 minutes, and then you may reserve any portion of that. You'll have it on your monitor there for rebuttal and whatnot at the end.
So 20 minutes for both opening and rebuttal.
Yes. Yeah, so it's up to you how much you want to do.
Gotcha. Well, first I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Honorable Chair. And I want to thank Ms. Kennedy for a great summary of the background that's going to help me a little bit. First, I want to say I have tremendous respect for staff. Unfortunately, neither staff's response nor the applicant's recently released letter of last night really addresses the appeal issues. This is a very simple case. DAs are not new. DAs are development agreements, secure rights, contractual rights for both applicants and cities. They confer rights. They freeze zoning at the time it's done. This is 2016. So too, judicial interpretation of contracts, pretty standard. You look at the whole of the agreement. You don't just grab a little bit here in isolation. You look at the whole thing, give it all its purpose, and the fundamental purpose of it is to give the intent of the parties. Here in 2016, and in the record, it's very clear that the city and Coastal Commission had a bargain for exchange. We'll give you 510 luxury rooms, and we expect a 100-bed youth hostel providing lower-cost accommodations. It was very clear, lower-cost accommodations. That was the bit of the bargain. It's very clear. But the question becomes, where are those rooms? They're not here. And the fact of the matter is, to call an existing obligation that has not been fulfilled as an additional obligation doesn't really make the mark. This project would allow, essentially, 519 luxury rooms plus allow the conversion of a purported 100-bed youth hostel that's providing lower-cost accommodations into a 31 boutique hotel room at high cost. And how many lower-cost accommodations did the city get? They were promised 100 beds, but they got 0. No reasonable person, no reasonable judge could interpret this contract to say what that says. It simply doesn't work. In my staff report, in my presentation, I'm gonna hit a couple of few things. First, the Coastal Act, why this case is so important, so on and so forth. So first, what's the Coastal Act, right? Why is lower cost accommodations important? Well, 3213 right there is exactly what you heard earlier. It cites the same thing. Lower cost accommodation has that same proviso where the Coastal Commission is not allowed to restrict rates. That's important in a couple of slides. Well, what is lower cost accommodations and what is Coastal Commission's methodology? Their preferred method is to prioritize 25% on-site. Well, what is lower cost? Well, it's very simple. What's the statewide average? 75 below is lower cost. 125 is high cost. Very tried and true. In today's numbers, what does that mean? Average state rate is about $200. Low cost about $150. High cost is $250. That's what the last few years kind of show. And the cases that are in the appeal and in our rebuttal, all of these cases are coastal cases. All of these have special conditions that relate to lower cost rates, maintaining them, and they really include incredible items. On-site, off-site, programming, marketing, monitoring, in lieu fees, sometimes a combination thereof. These are all things that the Coastal Commission has been able to do under the exact same language of the site that you saw earlier. Now, why this is important? Well, this is the wafer. This is what opened in 2014. This is the hostel that is at the center of this whole issue. This is actually on the Coastal Commission's own website. It's highlighted as a victory for lower cost accommodations. In fact, the wafer is actually connected to 2 projects. It actually received in lieu fees about $100,000 in 1986, and is specifically addressed in the Hilton Resort. These are, again, from Coastal Commission's own material. Why is this important in Santa Barbara? Well, because Santa Barbara doesn't have a whole lot of LCOAs, lower cost accommodations. In fact, recently, when looking at National City, the Coastal Commission said, hey, about 25% being lower cost is a good number. Where's Santa Barbara? Unfortunately, in a 2015 study, it said that there was only 70 low-cost rooms out of 2,700. That's 3%. It's second lowest of all counties. Big deal. In 2023, the city had a 2023 survey of 55 hotels. Not one hotel in the coastal zone was lower cost. The 3 that were identified were outside the coastal zone. And all of them, except for one facility that had 9 rooms, actually met lower cost. The need is really pressing. That's what this all comes down to. In terms of the history, as you heard, in 1981, project was approved. It was built in 86, 360 rooms, very clear. In 85, 86, you had the in lieu fee. This in lieu fee was specific for a regional facility. Applicants and their predecessors know this. This is a 2010 letter from their foundation's attorney that acknowledges this $100,000 in lieu fee to build this hostel. In the 90s, first development agreement, as you heard, amendment allowed the 150 hotel, but increased that hostel requirement from 75 to 100. Again, all known to all the parties. 2011, project starts changing a little bit. Applicant promised, we are going to pay by the bed, not the room. Also around 2011, the applicant submitted last night a 2011 city attorney letter, which, based on the plain reading, looks very clear that this is an ongoing requirement, that the hostel is supposed to be used in perpetuity and exclusively maintained as a hostel. This was known 3 years before the applicant purportedly lost control. That's important. So 2014 happens, wafer opens up. The evidence that we provided shows that there's only about 26 private rooms above high cost. Only 4 rooms had actually about 20 beds. So where's the 100-bed lower cost accommodations? Wasn't there. Fast forward, 2016, the development agreement. Again, what was there at 2016? You had 510 rooms, and the bargain of the benefit was, hey, where's our 100-bed, low-cost hostel? That was the bargain of the benefit. Now it's the Moxie. Again, evidence that we provided, very clear. All the rates skyrocket, all over 259, up to 600. Fundamentally, they say this is a hostel providing lower cost accommodations. The facts don't bear out. There's no way you can say at $600 a night or $250 a night is a lower cost accommodation. Let's go into some of the legal requirements. What's a development agreement? It's a legally binding contract. Right there, very clear in terms of interpretation of what it's supposed to do. It confers mutual benefit. What was the benefit here? You get your luxury rooms, we get our lower cost accommodations. Very clear. How do you interpret contracts? It's not willy-nilly. Courts are very clear on how it's done. Mammoth Lakes, what's the fundamental goal? Give effect to the mutual intent of the parties. Give the words their common, plain understanding. Additionally, if you look at City of Pomona, you have to interpret a contract so it's lawful. It makes sense. You cannot interpret it if it doesn't make sense and it doesn't pass muster or consistent with the law. Furthermore, Award Homes is actually a very interesting case. There, the court, again, you look at the whole instrument, even the recitals, and you give the intent of the parties. There, the court rejected the developer's development agreement interpretation that would render meaningless a material term in the recital. So let's look at these appeal issues. I'm going to first deal with the elephant in the room, the 100-bed hostel obligation, which staff, respectfully, we disagree. It's not an additional, it's an existing obligation. They've yet to actually address where are these 100 rooms that are lower cost accommodations. They have not addressed it. I can't find them. I look high and low, cannot find them. Second point, like I said, a court's going to look at the plain language. You have to look at the whole document and all its intended purposes. Let's look at the plain language. First, the amended specific plan, again, adopted in 26 in, apologies, this is 95, and part of the development agreement in 2016. Well, what does it say? The hostel will be owned and operated in perpetuity as a hotel. Wow, that sounds like it's an ongoing issue. Let's look at the 2016 DA definitions. Definitions, it's in the DA. Hostel condition of approval. What does that say? Property be used solely and exclusively for the construction, operation, and maintenance of a 100-bed hostel. This is verbatim the language in the 2011 city attorney letter. They knew about it. They knew this was an ongoing requirement. Let's look at the DA recitals. Again, the amended specific plan authorized 150 rooms. Not 160, not 170, not unfettered, 150 rooms. And what was in exchange? A 100-bed hostel doing what? Providing lower cost accommodations. A structure is not the same thing as lower cost accommodations. It's very clear. It's got to be lower cost. Pardon me. Let's look at the sections that they want to cite to. Again, section 8.3 and 11. What does it say there? Well, I'm looking at it. It says, fully satisfy the requirements of what? The amended specific plan. As you saw in your plain language, it's in perpetuity that hostel has to be provided. Let's also look at the very bottom of it. What does it say? Hostel or affordable or low-cost visitor accommodations. It's clear. It's unambiguous. You cannot say 250 to 600 is lower cost. Now we go down to 11.1.2. What does it say? Shall take into consideration and give appropriate credit. And what's that word you see again? Lower cost visitor accommodations through the development of the hostel. They would have an excellent argument if they can point to an actual hostel at that location providing 100 beds worth of LCOAs. They would have a great argument, but they have refused to even address that. And to call it an additional versus an existing, frankly, doesn't pass muster or this plain language of this language, of the development agreement. And again, this was just released yesterday. Apologies, digesting it in the middle of the night. But this is the 2011 letter from the city attorney that the applicant has provided. They had this 3 years before they purportedly lost control. The conclusion, or it says again, it makes it very clear, 100-bed youth hostel. That is what was required, providing visitor serving lodging, lower cost. That's pretty clear. Look at the conclusion. Yes, it appears it's been satisfied, but so long as the property is continuously maintained and operated as a 100-bed hostel. No breach and subsequent default of the redevelopment grant deed should occur. This, again, 3 years before they deeded the property away. The plain language is very clear. If you look at the whole document, they're supposed to be low-cost accommodations. In terms of some of the other issues, let's look at their interpretation. What would their interpretation do? Their interpretation would allow essentially a major concession. The concession was you have to build the 100-bed low-cost accommodations. That was the deal, and they were going to get their 510 rooms. Better of the bargain. They are trying to render that meaningless. They are trying to get rid of that, the benefit of the bargain. The bargain that the city agreed to, that they were expecting in 2016. No evidence has been shown that in 2016, the city didn't care about lower cost accommodations. In fact, the DA was very clear, in perpetuity, used solely and exclusively. And again, this is something that is not uncommon. North Marietta Community, that was a great case where the court looked at, well, these are sophisticated entities. They know what they're doing. They can look at their duties and responsibilities. This is not Joe Schmo. These folks are very clever. That's really fine counsel, I must admit. They know how to do grant deeds. You know how I know? They submitted 4 of them. Clearly they know grant deeds. They know how to interpret things. If they failed to properly condition their grant deeds, the fault does not lie with the city. That does not warrant unreasonable DA agreements or interpretations. The fault lies with them. Moving on, there is no ambiguity. You might be tempted to say, well, what's a hostel, what's not? It doesn't matter. The court looks at the document, and the document is very clear that the main crux is affordable accommodations. Where are those lower costs? It doesn't matter if it's 26 rooms, fine, 100 beds, congratulations. Are they lower cost? No, emphatically no, and in fact, there's been absolutely no evidence proffered to challenge our evidence showing that these are high cost. There's no ambiguity. This is really a kicker here. They are trying to encourage the city to adopt an interpretation that is unlawful. And again, under the Pomona case, you cannot interpret or borrow an interpretation that's against the law. The government code is very clear about development agreements. You have to be consistent with a specific plan. The city admits that the specific plan has in it in perpetuity. Where are those in perpetuity? They're saying that, oh, it's okay, you don't have to worry about it, it's fully satisfied. That's a direct conflict. And unfortunately, that doesn't pass muster. Additionally, on the 100-bed hostel, it's been suggested that all they required was a C of O. And the applicant cites to this, again, 2011 city attorney letter. If you look at the conclusion, it makes it very clear that it's an ongoing duty. It doesn't say that, oh, get any C of O and you're okay. Build anything and you're okay. That's not what was said. It was said there's an ongoing duty. Again, the language is right there for all to see. On the 9 rooms, this is where they're citing. They cite section 11, they cite to the square footage, they cite to the code section, and their argument is that, well, we're allowed to transfer whatever. We have no room rates. Again, you got to look at the language. Where in section 11 it says that they have unfettered ability to increase however many rooms they want. No, what it says explicitly, you have the right to transfer the square footage. No one's saying anything about that. No one's preventing that. But it doesn't say that you're allowed as many rooms as you want. If you look at the code section, their measurement is couched in the code section where it's talking about impact fees. Again, where does it say explicitly you're allowed unfettered, unlimited a number of rooms? I don't see it. And again, look at this. Courts do not interpret development agreements that results in absurd interpretations. Under their argument, they are completely unfettered, unlimited how many rooms that they're allowed. Notwithstanding, the DA is very clear. You had 360 existing rooms, and you were approved 150. Under their logic, it could be 519, 600, whatever they want. They're subject to their creativity, and not a single LCOA. Again, their interpretation, there are no LCOAs in the record, and now they're asking for 519 rooms with no LCOAs. It's difficult. Moving on, I want to address some of the other ones. In terms of take appropriate credit. Again, how many LCOAs have the city received? 0. What are they asking for? 519 rooms. I'm not sure if they've been given appropriate credit. Probably got a little bit too much. In terms of pattern and practice, there's a desperate need in the city for rooms. It's it's understood. In terms of the cases that were cited, the staff report says that they relied on their moderate-priced memo. These are all luxury. It's irrelevant. In terms of the Garden Street project that my client did try to appeal, the Coastal Commission refused to actually consider that on appeal, so they never ruled on the LCOA issue. And furthermore, this is an EJ issue. When you have 3% of your rooms only lower cost, who does that leave out? Inland communities. Folks like my client who would love to access, I love this area. I have so many fond memories. I bet they would love to have their family members. But the problem is we don't have any lower cost accommodations. Why? I don't know, maybe because we're making interpretations that says we don't need to worry about hostels providing lower cost accommodations. I don't know, call me crazy. In terms of the transferring of, so just last night we got first time the actual evidence of the five extensions. In terms of just on first blush, they keep on relying on the specific sections. If you look at section 4, the terms, nowhere does it say that the CDD can extend it administratively. If you look at section 11, it says it expires by operation of law, and on 21, it's very clear. You're allowed to extend the community development director for performances. Here, you've extended it 5 times. That could be material. Does this run afoul of amendment procedures? Not sure yet. Moving on to the deemed complete. Deemed complete is actually very important. Why? Again, the development agreement says you can transfer, but it has to be subject to what? Chapter 2895. Well, if you look at Chapter 2895, it talks about why it's important. You have all these findings. You have to make sure you have all the supporting documents. Yet, they have in their files, they haven't produced it. I'm certain I would have brought it if I had it, but haven't seen it. In terms of annual reviews, this is not a harmless mistake. It's very explicit. It's in the government code 65865.1. The case of City of Moreno Valley makes very clear that these are important. These annual reviews are not design review. They're not about planning commission or are you paying you've paid your fee. This is about a specific opportunity for the applicants to show that they have actually committed and are meeting their part of the deal. That's the fundamental purpose of this. And that has not happened. There is no evidence that has occurred. And it's not the same to say that you did design review, but it's the same as the annual review. It's not the same. In summary, the city had a benefit of the bargain. 5, 10 rooms, give us our lower cost accommodation. Coastal Commission knew it. The city knew it. The applicants knew it. That deserves to be enforced. And that enforcement is not only allowed under the development agreement, under the government code on development agreements, but it's also a contract right that you guys are allowed to enforce. You have the right to have that enforced, and you really should exercise all the remedies at your disposal. Those are the sections. I've got 23 seconds, so I'm going to leave it at that. I thank you for your time, and sorry for the grandstand.
All right, very good. You have 23 seconds left for rebuttal. And with that, we'll move on to the applicant. And once again, for the applicant, you have 20 minutes, which you may use at this point in time and/or reserve some for questions or rebuttal. Let us know when you're ready to go.
That's right.
Good afternoon, Mayor Rouse and council members. I'm Clay Arell, architect for the project. I have a slideshow here. The slides are not fitting properly, but we'll go through them pretty quickly. Anyway, I'm just going to run you through the project on a brief basis. I know Kathy did a great job of kind of orienting you with it, and I just have a couple extra slides to show. Our team is made up of AB Design Studio, SEPS Land Use Consulting, and Price Postel and Parma are here today. Here's our team that we have present with us today as well, the ownership team and the development team. This is the overall site plan, which you saw an aerial view earlier. Our project is over here, as we talked about before, as Kathy mentioned. Again, this is another view of it that you saw before. We've included some of the elevations of the project. This is the south elevation that you would see on Cabrillo Boulevard. It's keeping in consistent architecture of the existing hotel with some improvements. These are the other elevations. We're currently working through some process on this. We went to PC, as mentioned, on May 15th, got unanimous approval there, and we went to HLC on July 30th and got unanimous approval on our project design approval. Here's the development in context. So our project site is here, the existing hotel sits here, and the future waterfront sits here, and Cabrillo Boulevard, obviously, along there. Here's another view of it, proposed addition again here. Here's the existing hotel on this side, and again, the waterfront in the background. We saw a slide of this earlier that Kathy presented, but just, again, here's the current photo from this corner, and then here's what it'll look like with the addition. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Cameron, and he'll discuss the legal actions. Thank you. Yes. I need to.
I'll just do this. It's just.
Here, I'll just put it down here.
I'll start the clock again when you're ready to,
That's
you
right.
got your transition all
Thank
set?
you. Yeah. Oh, I can do it, actually. Thank you. That's great. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Rouse, City Council members. My name is Cameron Goodman. I'm an attorney here in Santa Barbara at Price Postel in Parma. We represent the applicant, Fess Parker. The legal arguments were actually laid out quite succinctly by city staff, and they are articulated in further detail in the comment letter that we have submitted on behalf of the applicant. Put simply, every one of appellant's arguments is unfounded. Appellant is distracting you with irrelevant issues and a tortured interpretation of the development agreement. The appeal must be denied, and as I'll explain, failure to deny this appeal would be not only a breach of the development agreement by the city, but also an illegal revocation of vested rights. I will start with the application timing and also the purported expiration of the development agreement. The application before you was submitted by the applicant in November of 2022. That was 7 months before the original deadline under the development agreement to submit an application for a transfer of existing development rights. The development agreement specifically contemplates that application for a transfer of existing development rights can continue to be processed so long as it is filed prior to the deadline, as it was. So, even assuming the development agreement has expired, which it has not, the application was submitted timely, and the city must continue to process the application as it has. Section 4 of the development agreement, which you saw earlier on the appellant slide, allows for the term to be extended by the mutual consent of the parties. That's the city and American tradition. There are no limitations on extensions for privileges or options, as the appellant is alleging. As you have seen, the development agreement has been timely extended in writing on 5 separate occasions by the parties to the development agreement. Most recently in 2020, most recently this year, extending the term of the development agreement until 2027, and in fact, extending the deadline to submit a transfer for existing development rights until 2029. So even if the transfer of existing development rights application had not been filed timely, which it has, the deadline to file has been extended by 2 years. So, the fundamental issue before you. Whether and to what extent the hostel or any other property within the city is operated as a lower cost overnight accommodation is irrelevant to the appeal before you. I think it's important to note a fact that has been glossed over a little bit. A 100-bed hostel in full compliance with all of the conditions of approval, was constructed by the Parker family, and a certificate of occupancy was issued in 2014. And when that was issued, the Parker family sold that hostel, I think referred to as the Wayfarer or the Moxie, to an unrelated third party. And since 2014, neither American Tradition nor the applicant, Fess Parker, has had any operational control over that hostel, nor have they had any enforcement rights with respect to the operation of that hostel. American Tradition has a vested right to develop the waterfront hotel without any further mitigation for lower cost overnight accommodations. This is memorialized in the development agreement. Those vested rights to develop square footage, non-residential square footage, without additional mitigation can be transferred to the Hilton Hotel, which is the subject of the application before you today. The Parker family's completion in the hostel in 2014 fully satisfied all mitigation requirements. This is memorialized in detail in the development agreement, in the city's specific plan, and in a 2011 city attorney letter, which you saw in the appellant's presentation, and which is also attached to our comment letter. And that letter confirmed that no further mitigation would be required, or could be required, frankly, after the Parker family sold the hostel to an unrelated third party. And again, I'll reiterate, neither American Tradition nor Fess Parker have any enforcement rights with respect to the compliance with those lower cost overnight accommodation requirements in any event. So we understand the city is looking into the status, the operational status of the hostel. Don't know the outcome of that, but the outcome of that investigation is completely irrelevant to the application before you for all the reasons mentioned. It's simply inappropriate for the city to be considering whether and to what extent the hostel itself or any other property within the city is currently being operated as a lower cost overnight accommodation with respect to this application before you. The application must be approved irrespective of the hostel operation or lower cost overnight accommodations in the city. Finally, there has been some discussion about the number of hotel rooms that are being proposed to be added to the Hilton Hotel as compared to the number of hotel rooms that were approved for the Waterfront Hotel. The number of hotel rooms being added are irrelevant both under the terms of the development agreement and under the terms of the municipal code. Approved floor area as defined under the development agreement is measured in square footage, not room count, by default, and this is also the way that the transfers work under the municipal code. The application, well, first, the development agreement, as you have seen, has memorializes a vested right to transfer up to 66,834 square feet of approved floor area from the Waterfront Hotel to the Hilton Hotel. The application before you seeks to transfer more than 20,000 square feet less than what is approved to be transferred from the Waterfront Hotel. This is a vested right to transfer approved square footage irrespective of the number of hotel rooms added, and as already mentioned, the city has no discretion to impose additional requirements for lower cost overnight accommodations as a condition of approval for this transfer. I'll just summarize very quickly what we went over and where this leaves you. First, as we discussed, the application was filed on time, in fact, 7 months early. Second, the development agreement was properly extended multiple times, most recently until 2029 as it relates to transfers of existing development rights. So even if, for argument's sake, the application wasn't timely submitted, they still have 2 more years to do so. Most importantly, all low-cost overnight accommodation mitigation requirements of the Parker family and American Tradition under the development agreement have been fully satisfied. Whether and to what extent the mitigation that was provided by the Parker family and American Tradition continues to be operated as a lower cost overnight accommodation is none of American Tradition's concern or the applicant's concern with respect to this application. That is not something that needs to be considered by the City Council today. And again, transfers of existing development rights, both under this agreement, which is the basis for the application, and under the municipal code, are measured in square feet, not in hotel rooms. So our client is entitled to benefit from these vested rights under the development agreement. The City Council really has no discretion here. The appeal has to be denied, and if the appeal is not denied, the city would be breaching the development agreement and illegally revoking vested rights belonging to which our client is entitled to benefit. So for all these reasons, we respectfully request that you deny the appeal. I'm happy to answer any questions now or during deliberations, and we'll reserve the rest of our time for rebuttal. Thank you for your time and consideration.
All right, thank you very much. You've got a minute and 12 seconds left. Prior to these questions, I'm going to allow for rebuttal from both sides, and then there's going to be a staff chance to address those things, and then we'll go to council questions. Does the appellant have anything they'd like to rebut over your 23 seconds?
I'll
You're
be
a pretty
quick. I was
fast
quick
talker,
before.
yeah, so.
First, look at the actual letter. The conclusion does not say your C of O is all you need. It makes very clear it's an ongoing requirement. I would love to see this case law that says you don't have to look at material terms. Love it. I haven't seen it. Applicant's letter didn't have much citations in it. Actually, it just says, don't worry about this. Don't need to look at it. Don't see it anywhere. Again, courts have rejected unreasonable interpretations. In terms of the square footage, it's the square footage that they're allowed to, not unfettered amount of hotel rooms.
All right, thank you. And is there a final rebut by the applicant? And you, sir, have 9 minutes and 12 seconds if you wish.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, my name is Eli Parker. My sister, Ashley Parker Snyder, and I, along with our families, are co-owners of the Hilton Santa Barbara Beachfront Resort. I'm here today on behalf of our families to respectfully urge the council to deny the appeal currently before you. As you are already aware, the Planning Commission, after careful consideration, approved this project on Thursday, May 15th of this year, followed shortly thereafter by the Historic Landmarks Commission approval of this project on July 30th. The unanimous decisions of both of these governing agencies, a rarity in Santa Barbara, should stand. The Hilton Santa Barbara Beachfront Resort is a cornerstone of our city's hospitality economy. This project will improve a key local and visitor-serving property, enhance our city's reputation as a premier coastal destination, and contribute significantly to the local economy through transient occupancy tax revenues, job creation, and visitor spending at businesses throughout Santa Barbara. The project's upgrades will elevate the guest experience on this highly visible beachfront property while keeping the property competitive in a market that supports hundreds of local jobs and small businesses. The appeal before you is based on unfounded arguments surrounding a longstanding development agreement entered into between American Tradition LLC and the City of Santa Barbara, which grants to American Tradition the right to construct additional hotel room square footage on the waterfront. Both American Tradition and the owner of Hilton Santa Barbara, Fess Parker Red Lion Hotel, have fully complied with the terms of that development agreement for the process of transferring entitlements from American Tradition's property to the Hilton Santa Barbara, and have complied with all current city regulations, requirements in designing the project. Giving weight to any of the arguments contained in the appeal before you today would contravene public policy, violate the terms of the development agreement, and improperly obstruct a project that has followed all established procedures. I respectfully request that you uphold the Planning Commission's approval and allow the Hilton Santa Barbara Beachfront Resort to move forward with this much-needed project. Doing so will support our local economy, protect jobs, and maintain the fairness and consistency in the city's land use decision-making process. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. And does that exhaust the applicants? You do have a little over 6 minutes left in your presentation, if you'd like, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Rouse, City Council members. We have nothing further to add. I'm available to answer questions, as is the project architect and the planner.
Very
Thank
good.
you
What
for
we're
your
going to
time.
do then is we're going to go back to staff and let them respond to what they've heard. We'll then hear some, we'll go into council questions and then we'll public comment and deliberations. So with that, Ms. Kennedy will return back to staff. Do you have additional presentation or comment to make? Stringer.
Mayor Rouse, excuse me. As the applicant said, the property of the hostel that seems to be the core issue that is concerning people, it was constructed as a hostel, and then the Parker family transferred it. Currently, neither the Hilton Hotel nor the Waterfront Hotel have any enforcement over this. There's nothing they could do. It's truly a city matter now that we need to make sure that they're implementing those conditions of approval. We've taken steps already to do that. There's, I believe the appellant also involved the Coastal Commission, so there's great scrutiny on this project now. So as they have satisfied their obligations, the American tradition, and it's clearly set forth in the development agreement that those obligations have been satisfied. They've also continued to maintain the park. They've invested a lot of money in this project, and they deserve to be able to move forward with this project and to rely on the terms of the development agreement that say they can transfer these vested rights, which have value, to another location. And then, with that said, we have Lucille Boss, Commissioner Boss online, who would like to speak if she can have that opportunity.
Yes, go right ahead as a part of the staff presentation. Right?
Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. My name is Lucille Boss, and I'm here virtually today to represent the Planning Commission and its approval of the project. We were able to make the findings for the parking modification, development plan, transfer of existing development rights permit, coastal development permit, and environmental impact report addendum as outlined in the staff report dated May 8th, 2025, which is subject to the conditions of approval as outlined in that staff report, with revisions to the conditions addressing tree relocation and bicycle spaces. During the hearing, staff presented and commission discussed a range of subjects, and I'll focus on three: the development agreement, housing, and the hostel. Staff confirmed during the hearing that the development agreement was still in effect and that the transfer of existing development rights application was filed correctly. Housing and zoning. At this time, housing is not an allowable use in the area. HE20 evaluate hotel zones is scheduled to be done by the end of this calendar year, which will address the current inability to develop housing in the area. And commissioners discussed and staff concurred that the Coastal Commission recognizes the housing crisis and may approve changes to allow for housing in this area. And housing funding. A condition of the specific plan was that Housing Policy 5.5 will be met because the redevelopment agency will use at least 20% of the tax increment monies accruing from this property for housing for persons of low and moderate income. Commissioners discussed and staff concurred that there should be a mechanism to update the specific plan to accurately reflect the current program, which is the Housing Trust Fund, at least until a citywide policy is in place. And finally, the hostel. The conditions in the specific plan and development agreement require a hostel to provide lodging facilities for lower income visitors and provide lower cost visitor accommodations, and that the hostel shall be dedicated to a public agency or private organization which will own and operate it in perpetuity as a hostel. The Waterfront Hotel was required to provide lower cost accommodations, and they did so at that time. The Planning Commission expressed concerns regarding the current operation of the hostel, and commissioners requested and staff affirmed there would be an investigation and enforcement as warranted by the investigation. Thank you for your time. I'll remain online and available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Boss. Are there further comments by staff?
Yes, Mayor Rouse, we have Commissioner Grumbine.
Mr. Grumbine?
Yeah, for once, I got an easy one. So for Historic Landmarks Commission, I just wanted to be here to represent, to tell you all that it was a very good and smooth process. A great project. They very quickly got approval from us, and so it was an easy one to give our approval, and it meets all of our standards, and it's an excellent job from a design standpoint. So just wanted to say that. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but it's looking like you probably won't be asking me many questions. So that's just a guess, but we'll see. So anyways.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rumbine. Okay, anything further from staff, Ms. Ostringer or Ms. Kennedy? All right, very good. With that, we'll come back to council for questions, and Ms. Harmon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to start where Ms. Ostringer left off, because this is, I think, really critical for us to tease out based both on the information that's been provided and especially on the presentation today. And hello, Attorney Sisson, I see you all a lot at the Coastal Commission, so nice to see you in our chambers as well. There was a lot of talk today about like the plain language of the DA, and I'm looking at the plain language of the DA, including the recitals, recital M, where it says that the construction is the key, doesn't say operation, it says construction. So in my reading, the plain language of that recital is that it's the construction that's required. It has been constructed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And in the transfer, so I think it was built, they had a certificate of occupancy, and then this hostel was transferred. In the transfer, the sale rather, was the deed conditioned that it must maintain a hostel? Is there some kind of title, notation on title, that it has to be a hostel?
For the Planning Commission approval of the hostel, they are conditions of approval. It was approved by the Planning Commission as a hostel and described that way, and is to remain that way.
Okay, so the purchaser must be aware, or I think we could assume as a sophisticated actor that they would be aware that this is required in perpetuity to function as a hostel?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and so this gets to where I think you were going. There's an enforcement action here that is, I don't know, I haven't investigated this. I've just, based on what we're hearing, separately from the conversation about these vested rights, in the specific context of this hostel, what we can do is around enforcing the ongoing obligations of this building, right?
Councilmember Harmon, through the mayor, that's correct.
Okay. So to confirm, the applicant, the project applicant, has no ongoing relationship with the hostel, could not influence the price of the rooms one way or another, even if they wanted to today.
Councilmember Harmon, that's correct.
Okay, that's extremely helpful to be clear on. We also spoke a lot about the benefit of the bargain. I think that's something that speaks to me. I often think about, are we getting the benefit of the bargain? This bargain was made a very long time ago. In fact, I think maybe I wasn't even born or was just born when it was first made. So I was not a part of that conversation in any way, shape, or form. Let's say I don't like the bargain that was made, or I don't think it's sufficient. I don't have the legal capacity to change that bargain now. Or if I were to come in and say, you know what, I don't like this bargain, I'm going to do something different. Can you tell me what the consequences of that action would be for us as a city?
Yes, Councilmember Harmon, so the DA requires specific performance. It is a contract, it's a binding contract. As the appellant was actually saying, you don't take it piece by piece, you look at it as a whole. And as a whole, they've already formed the terms of what was provided and the benefit of the bargain that we received as a city. If we, for some point, don't like it, it's too late now to change it. The American Traditions, which is not the Hilton, but they could bring an action under writ mandate to enforce this agreement that says that they're allowed to transfer these existing development rights to another site. With regards to the Hilton, they may, because their entitlements are development plan and they were approved, then they could also bring a writ to counter the council's decision if you were to uphold the appeal.
Okay. And for those that are not lawyers, specific performance means that we would have to let them do it anyway.
Correct.
Okay. That's extremely helpful. Thank you. And so I want to switch gears just a little bit, and this is my last sort of set of questions, because that's very helpful to have gone through. In the presentation by Attorney Sisson, there was a lot of great references to some really wonderful work that the Coastal Commission has done with our partners, honestly, around lower cost overnight visitor serving accommodation and the different ways that we've got at trying to get lower cost accommodation either on-site or in conjunction with hotel developments. But here's where I'm a bit confused. We have an approved LCP in the city of Santa Barbara, correct?
Councilmember Hargan, that's correct.
So when we look at projects in the coastal zone, we at the city of Santa Barbara have the authority to issue CDPs on the basis of that LCP. And in the event that our issuance of a CDP is appealed to the Coastal Commission, the Coastal Commission doesn't review on the basis of its own sort of feelings around LCOAs. It reviews as to whether the issuance of the permit was in line with the approved LCP of the city of Santa Barbara. Is that correct?
That's correct, Councilmember Harmon.
Okay. So I say all that so that everyone is aware. The Coastal Commission, when they approve an LCP, that is the lens through which the commission would review the action taken by a city. So I just think it's important to understand the process here, and not to get too far into comments, but if we felt that, for example, policy 3.2-12 is not sufficient and no longer lives up to the mission of section 30213 under the Coastal Act, if we wanted to change that, for us as a city, the way to do that is not through an appeal like today, but rather through an amendment to our LCP that would revise our city's lower cost overnight accommodation standards in our LCP.
That's correct, Councilmember Harmon. It would take probably about 2 years.
Okay. We've got 14 months left while I'm there. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple points I'm still confused on, and that's who actually had the obligation to the burden and funding for the hostel. So was that just what we're calling the waterfront hotel project, or was that burden also on what we would call Fess Parker's Hilton?
I believe it's the waterfront hotel ownership at the time.
That's what I think too. So a couple of your slides just made the point that the waterfront hotel had the burden and or didn't, or was irrelevant, but it would actually be separating out the original Fess Parker Red Lion Inn had no relationship to the provision of the hostel property. That was strictly when the agreement was made to construct the waterfront hotel. Part of the mitigation for that property alone was the hostel. Does that sound correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And I think the questions have been answered. You presented it in your staff report, but it seems like I've gotten 1,000 emails that say otherwise, so I'll ask it again. There's no relationship then between the Fess Parker Hilton and the hostel, or any responsibility from the Fess Parker Inn to the hostel for its either building or operations. Does that sound correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Kind of answers all my other questions. I'm just going to tell you that I'm going to pummel you with some short questions again, because I've gotten 1,000 emails that say otherwise, and I want to make sure that it's said out loud. The waterfront property can transfer anywhere they want in this city the square footage of their unused vested development.
I believe it may be restricted to the downtown or certain areas,
Okay.
But it can be transferred to the Hilton Hotel project or any elsewhere in the city.
And it can be transferred once vested, regardless if not built and demolished, correct?
It can be transferred at any
As
time.
when it's
Yes,
like
it's
on
vested in-
paper.
Yes,
You don't have to be the Sandman in and build it and run through a lifetime and then demolish those rooms and not use them. You don't have to build a project to have those rooms available. If you have them vested, they are available to you
that's correct.
in our municipal code. And it's by square footage, not by rooms.
That's correct.
And then the development agreement is still active and in force, correct?
Yes,
And the transfer of development rights was requested in a timely manner according to our process.
yes, and we have records in our project files too.
Okay, that's
Show
enough
that.
of the annoying questions. Tell me, so we just don't get lost in some of the other discretionary approvals, tell me about the parking modification. I'll just contextualize that according to my experiences, is like it's a vast land of parking anytime you go there right now. So I would call it overparked. And then tell me, will it still be overparked according to the traffic study after the additional rooms are added?
If I can recall correctly, so there was a parking demand study made, and the parking that's being provided is meeting the demand. There was a parking modification years ago as well, previously. I don't recall whether they're over the demand or not. I could check, but they definitely meet the parking demand.
And then I'm certain, I don't remember reading the phone book, but there's other parcel improvements at the Hilton property that are being either proposed to be accomplished or are triggered as a result of the additional square footage, stuff like stormwater or anything else. So could you just give me a layman's overview of what some of those benefits are to this development?
Yes, Member Jordan. So some of the things that are included in this project are new lanai pools, a new swimming pool, spa, new landscaping throughout, stormwater requirements are being met, actually soil and groundwater remediation as well, some public improvements, not along East Cabrillo, but along the side street there, tree removals and tree replacements, protection of trees. Let's see. That's about it.
Anything to do with solar improvements or anything like that?
I don't recall if there are solar
Charging
panels.
stations?
There are EV charging stations, yes.
Okay, so kind of really not looking for the spa and pool stuff. I'm kind of more looking for the stuff for the next century. So, all right, that's all my questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Friedman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies, some of these have been asked, but I just want clarifications. So I'll start just with the hostel. Based on the testimony today, the hostel is not owned or operated by the applicant. So if they don't own it and then the hostel is not accommodating the requirements for the low-cost accommodation services, just once again, that is an enforcement issue that the city would need to address, but the applicant would not have any ability to enforce that.
Member Freeman, yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then on page 7 of the staff report, and this was referenced in many of the different materials or some of this language, but I'm going to specifically read it. I just wanted to clarify again on the issue of the hostel. It says, the amended Park Plaza Specific Plan Resolution Number 94-030 does state that, quote, the hostel shall meet the criteria for a superior grade hostel facility equivalent to that established by the American Youth Hostel Association, and that the hostel shall be dedicated to a public agency or private organization which will own and operate it in perpetuity, keyword as a hostel. However, as noted above in section 8.3, the applicant has no further obligations regarding the hostel. Therefore, any current conditions regarding hostel compliance are irrelevant to this application. So again, according to our own staff analysis, whether or not the hostel is complying with the low-cost accommodation services, it is not the applicant that is bears a responsibility for that, and it's not part of today's hearing that we could consider.
Councilmember Friedman, that's correct. So it's not relevant to this project. Of course, the city staff will look into compliance with that separately, but it's not part of this project application.
Okay, and thank you. And then kind of moving on to the issue, and this was discussed earlier as part of Councilmember Harmon's questions, but if there was, if we denied the project, upheld the appeal, denied the project, and it went into litigation, I'm trying to understand what are some of the issues that would come up. One, would the issue of the public park come up during that in terms of, as part of the original plan, there was a park that was dedicated and they have maintained it. Would the city face any consequences for the fact that part of the agreement, we've extracted the value of the public park, they've maintained it? Would that be something that would be, in addition to whether or not the hostel and low-cost accommodations, would this be something that would be of concern if it were to go into the courts?
Councilmember Friedman, through the mayor, I wouldn't be too concerned about that because it's part of the development agreement and it's outlined in there. So it would, again, it's a contract. They're required to maintain it. They're required to pay for Chase Palm Park for 35, I believe it's 35 years from the building completion of the project. So we have those terms. So if we did go to court, I don't see any jeopardy of losing the park.
Oh, let me rephrase that. Sorry, I think I phrased that wrong. If we upheld the appeal and denied the project today, and that gets into the development agreement, whether or not we're violating the development agreement by denying the project, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, as part of the development agreement going back and the project, we've upheld our end of the bargain with the park, and now today you didn't. Would they have a cause of action on that?
Yeah, they would bring it more holistically with the fact that we denied the development applications, or if it was American Tradition bringing it, it would be that, you're violating the development agreement.
Okay, so that would be in there, and the fact that the park is there would be part of the whole thing.
Yes, so both Hilton and American Traditions could potentially have a cause of action against the city.
That kind of gets further, there would be causes of action, that would be one thing. The only other area, it got brought up with Planning Commissioner Boss's comments on housing. And this is somewhat similar, although the circumstances are different with the 101 Garden. Once again, this parcel is not zoned for housing, so housing is not even an option here, is that correct?
That's correct.
And if we did want it, it would require a rezone and part of the local coastal plan to rezone it for housing, so they'd have to go through that whole process.
Yes, that would be the process.
So with the 73, there's a total of 73 new hotel rooms that will be added, and this would also come up with a number of additional service sector jobs in the city, which would potentially have an impact on housing for those new workers. Is there any way, as part of today, that we could add any conditions to help offset the impact for housing, such as a condition of, because it was mentioned again in Commissioner Boss's, the issue of the local housing trust fund, contributions to that. Is that something that we could consider today, or is that outside again of the purview?
Councilmember Friedman, through the mayor, that's not really, there's no nexus. They've satisfied all of their obligations to get to the project to this point. So there has to be a nexus of what kind of a condition, and at this point, I can't find one.
Okay, so that would, if they wanted to, could do it voluntarily, which is what the 101 Garden did, but there's nothing that we could do in terms of housing impacts that we could do today.
That's correct, Councilmember Friedman, and as Commissioner Boss mentioned, that's part of the study and part of our housing element that we'll be looking into.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Ms. Sneddon.
Thank you, Mayor Rouse. So there was at some point some formal written notice from the city that, yes, you have fulfilled your obligations as to having constructed the hostel. Is that correct?
Councilmember Sneddon, it is a provision in the development agreement that calls that out, that it has been met.
And was there a formal notice of that? There's been reference to it, that they were notified it was done, your obligation is complete, or is there some sort of stamp, or?
I think the best place is the development agreement itself in 2016 that refers to the fact that that obligation was met.
Okay, so the the rewritten development agreement in 2016?
Right, and the hostel was constructed and finished in 2014.
Okay, so, and that development agreement referenced that that obligation had been met. It's in writing, and it
Yes.
has a date on it, and that date's 2016. Okay. So I guess I have some questions here moving forward, because we've been tossing around a lot the idea of development agreements and talking about them and this in perpetuity business, and then like, oh, well, once I transferred it, I'm not responsible for that, which I agree. I think that in this case. But in general, you know, I want to be really careful about some questions here, because it raises very many red flags for me in these development agreements where we're like fast and loose making deals about in perpetuity, and it seems to me like, oh, actually, not so much. So questions. One, what is a hostel?
Council Member Sneddon, through the mayor, it's, when you look at the, what it's called, the American Youth Hostel, it defines what it is, and it usually has to have a communal kitchen, and it's constructed in a manner that lends itself to lower cost accommodations. A lot of times people, you know, there's a communal bathroom, there's like 4 bunk beds in a hostel. It's kind of what we traditionally think of when you think of you're backpacking through Europe, but there's no definition that says that it can't have, like in this case, the Moxie or the Wayfarer. This hostel happens to have a bathroom attached to each room. It does have a kitchen.
And Wi-Fi, and televisions, and air conditioning, and a pool, and many spa-like amenities.
Correct. So, Councilmember Sneddon, looking back,
Yeah.
I don't think any of us were part of this, but looking back as we were reviewing this and seeing what kind of enforcement we can do, we would have put in other terms. We would have said something along the lines of, you can't have a bathroom for every room, some things like that that would keep it from turning into a hotel hostel, a very expensive hostel, put it that way.
Right, because if it was built to be for more affordable, it wouldn't be able to, in today's market, command $360 to $600 hotel fees per night if it had. So, I mean, I guess I'm going to get back to that too in the discussion, that I think we made a mistake by signing off that in 2016 that was done, but apparently we did. Apparently this 2016 development agreement references that obligation was met. And I'm going to make comments later that I really disagree we should have done that, but we did. Is that, it's in writing, it's done, okay. What makes something a youth hostel? Because that's also in the requirement, that it be a youth hostel in perpetuity.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just comment that those specific things, as Ms. Ostringer pointed out, are not requirements. The only requirement in the specific plan was that that the hostel would be established, that it would meet the requirements established by the American Youth Hostel Association. There wasn't anything more specific beyond that, except for that it have that specific number of rooms, the 100 rooms.
And did it ever have 100 beds in its life?
I think that's speculate. Could it ever have 400 beds?
No, did it ever have 100
Oh,
beds
did it ever have
in
100
its life?
beds?
Councilmember Sneddon, I'm not sure. We're looking into it, and we're going through the history, and we would have other information for you
Yeah,
in the
because
future.
that might be
but-
mistake number 2 of having signed off on it being complete. If it wasn't built ever to be able to have 100 beds in it,
Councilmember Sneddon, I believe it can fit 100 beds, and that's what we're going to be checking.
Okay, and had it ever, I guess, is part of that question too, which is under investigation, I understand. So in the development agreement in general, how would we require or enforce in perpetuity? Is it just through this sort of enforcement action after the fact? Is that standard development agreement protocol or?
Councilmember Sneddon, through the mayor, the conditions of approval that the Planning Commission conditioned on the hostel is what we would use to regulate it going forward in perpetuity.
So each development agreement's different?
Yeah, so
So we could
condition-
learn from this?
Yes.
Okay.
And just to clarify, sorry,
Yeah.
I believe that if, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, the conditions of approval are recorded on the property so that, anyone who purchases the property should be aware that those are disclosed as part of any purchase transaction.
Okay, thank you. And then there's one more requirement here, and this is just, I don't understand the language of it. And it's in that, that same part about the American Youth Hostel Association standards, but it says, the hostel shall not be provided above space utilized for entertainment or night activity. It's in the language of it. And was
I
it?
guess that's probably for noise requirements, so like you wouldn't have it above like a nightclub, so the the hostel rooms, like people sleeping wouldn't be disturbed. That would be,
The hostel itself.
Yeah, if I had to guess what that says, I mean, obviously none of us were here when that
Yeah.
agreement was approved, so, but I would assume you would not want a hotel or hotel beds above a nightclub or other nighttime activities with loud noises.
And does it not now currently have a bar in it, in the downstairs?
Not sure.
Through the mayor, Councilmember Sneddon, just some of the American tradition hostel standards, we're getting at subpar hostels. So the point of them was to protect hostel goers to have minimum standards of living. So more of the concern of council and planning commission at the time was that making sure that there was minimum standards met. So because traditionally you're sharing bathrooms, rooms, and whatever, it was a protection of those. So in hindsight, we could have looked at also the upper end, that we also wanted to add protections to the maximum standards that the hostel could have been developed. And that is a lesson that absolutely we've taken forward. But in terms of noise or nuisance and how much you could extract of paying hostel rentals to take their money and then have them in subpar conditions was the concern of those standards.
Thank you so much, and I'll have comments later, but I'm really glad to see that we're acknowledging that maybe this wasn't a perfect execution and that we can learn for the future in development agreements. So those are my questions for now. Thank you.
All right, very good. And if there are no further questions, we'll move on to public comment on the issue. I have some public comment speaker slips, but as I said, after these are turned in, if you are here to represent local number 11, you are an appellant, and you have had your time at the mic. So as I call these out, for example, Jonah Breslaw is in United number, or here at local 11, so part of that. Andrew Seymour. Sam, okay, are you part of local 11?
No, I'm here speaking on behalf in solidarity with local 11.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm here on my own behalf, speaking in solidarity and support of local 11. I'm not here representing local 11.
Okay, well, I'll give you 3 minutes, but if you wander into the advocacy part of it, it's going to be, you just got to be careful about it. Got to be fair to both sides. So,
Okay. Hi. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, council members. My name is Andy Seymour. So Santa Barbara County is in desperate need of more affordable accommodations. According to the 2015 Coastal Conservancy study, I think as we've already heard, only 3% of hotel rooms in the Santa Barbara County coast zone, so in other words, 70 out of the 2,700 plus hotel rooms were considered affordable or low-cost accommodations. So this was woefully below the statewide average of 14% and practically the lowest percentage among all coastal counties, behind only Monterey County. A 2023 survey of 55 hotels in Santa Barbara did not cite a single affordable low-cost accommodation in the coastal zone, and where one location outside of the coastal zone may have provided 9 low-cost rooms 2.5 miles from the coast. So 9 low-cost rooms. Santa Barbara needs affordable or low-cost rooms. The Coastal Act Section 30213 explicitly states, lower-cost visitor and recreational facilities shall be protected, encouraged, and where feasible, provided. California voters adopted the Coastal Act to ensure that our coast is for everyone, not just the rich. Previous decision makers recognized this. Relevant city and coastal commission approvals seem to require the construction, operation, and maintenance of a 100-bed hostel, as we've heard, used solely and exclusively for lower-cost accommodations. Uphold the commitment to build an affordable hostel. Prioritize affordable accommodations before allowing the construction of another 73 luxury rooms. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, once again, I think that was a letter was submitted that we all read from Local 11, so let's not keep repeating that if we could, please. Ms. Miguel Batista? Yeah, thank you. Okay. Matt Richards? Yeah, but you're with Local 11? You're... No, I'm speaking in solidarity with Local 11. Well, if you're here wearing the T-shirt, you're in solidarity, whatever. You guys spoke as an appellant already, so...
Mr. Mayor, I think the question is whether or not he's a member of the...
Are you a member of
Unite Here
Local 11? Okay, come on up. Thank you for the clarification. And you, I'm sorry, you're Miguel?
No, I'm Matthew Richard.
You're Matt. Okay, thank you. Go right ahead.
City and coastal documents say that the people of California were supposed to get an affordable hostel in perpetuity on Montecito. However, this hostel may be operating as a 31-room Moxie, a boutique hotel at high cost rates. For example, $270 to $630 a night, and it seems to have no low cost rates. Or hostel beds. This hostel project may have received $100,000 in lieu fees from the Bacara Resort project, approved in the mid-1980s, which was required to help establish a regional hostel that provides affordable accommodations. Yet, it is not clear whether any hostel beds are offered at the Moxie, much less affordable, low-cost accommodations. And no affordable, low-cost rooms are being proposed as part of the Hilton's Resort's 73-room addition. I don't know about all of you, but I cannot afford even $270 a night. At that low-end rate, a 4-night stay will be more than my share of the rent for a whole month. I don't understand why this developer would get the privilege of expanding their hotel, already the largest in Santa Barbara, when it doesn't seem like the commitment to build a hostel is being honored. Please uphold the appeal and send this project back to the drawing board. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Frank Bautista? Are you a member of Local 11? I'm sorry? You're not a member. All right.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. My name is Frank Bautista, and at the Planning Commission and today, we are to sense that the city can't do anything, that the city is powerless to require lower cost overnight accommodations. That just isn't true. The city should look at what the Coastal Commission has done. In case after case, whether it's the Magnolia Tank Farm in Huntington Beach, the American Tin Cannery Project in Monterey County, the Ocean Avenue Project in Santa Monica, and many, many more, the Coastal Commission has required lower cost overnight accommodations to be provided on site or for in lieu fees to be paid to protect and encourage coastal access for everybody. In 2019, the California Coastal Commission levied a $15 million penalty against Sunshine Enterprises and its shore hotel in Santa Monica for illegally demolishing 2 hotels with dozens of low-cost guest rooms and replacing them with high-end shore hotel without a proper permit. A judge noted that Sunshine Enterprises had conducted a bait and switch, obtaining a permit for a moderately priced travel lodge and then constructing a boutique luxury hotel. These examples show that we can uphold commitments to providing lower cost overnight accommodations. Please uphold the appeal and deny this expansion unless the loss of the 100-bed affordable hostel is addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Brenda Romero, are you a part of Local 11? Okay, come on up.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Brenda Romero. Public ACES, including the provision of lower cost overnight accommodation, is an essential coastal access issue. The Coastal Commission has affirmed the importance of LCOAs as important public access and environmental justice issues. As evidenced by workshops and numerous CCC decisions, the failure to enforce lower cost overnight accommodation policies impacts marginalized communities, including hotel services workers like members of our union. A lot of work on the coast, but we can't afford to live or even stay overnight on the coast. You can do something to stand up for this issue. The city has a duty to take action to protect coastal access for all of us, not just the wealthy, not just the rich. We can afford to stay at Moxie or the Hilton. As the Santa Barbara's local coastal program states, visitors serving in recreational uses, particularly lower coast ones, shall also be protected and encouraged. Here is a real question as to whether lower cost accommodations were protected. Stand with the Unite Here Local 11 and cause the Santa Barbara Democratic Party uphold the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Andrews? No comment. Okay, thank you. Anna? There you are. Both of you.
Sorry, we were being very distracting, so. All right, so good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Anna, Policy Advocate for Cause, and I'm here to urge you to grant the appeal on behalf of Unite Here 11 and deny the Hilton Santa Barbara expansion project until original agreement is honored and maintained. When approval was first given, the agreement commitment was building and maintaining an affordable hostel to ensure affordable coastal access availability. I understand that today there is no enforcement that can be done in regards to the current hostel operations, but would like to make sure that the hostel language is included as stated during the appropriate moment within the process to ensure that there continues to be affordable coastal access accommodations. Also recommend that council continue to direct city staff not only to enforce the current agreement now, but also, if possible, apply any fines that may be applicable for not complying with the providing affordable accommodations. This is also a perfect example that more than ever, we need to keep a clear, transparent record of not only our housing availability in Santa Barbara, but also our current development projects, whether they are one night, short-term, or long-term rentals, and to continue enforcement long after the ink dries. Thank you.
Thank you. Noah Sutterfield? Okay. Bridget Day? And are you a member of Local 11?
I am not. I'm here to support them, but I am not. Good morning, afternoon. Good afternoon, Mayor Rouse and council members. My name's Bridget Day. I am a political coordinator with the Central Coast Labor Council, a coalition of over 75 labor unions representing more than 70,000 union workers in the region. I'm here to support Unite 11 and share in their concerns about the proposed Hilton expansion. A hotel room isn't just a hotel room, like we've heard. It represents an economy and an industry that brings people, jobs, revenue, and tax dollars to our city. But this must be done with local working people in mind. If and when we expand resources for tourists, that expansion should be done thoughtfully and intentionally with a focus on creating and strengthening good-paying, sustainable jobs for the people who keep our tourism and service industries running. We urge the council to give full consideration to these concerns and to prioritize housing affordability, quality job creation, transportation, and accessibility. Please uphold Unite Here Local 11's appeal on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, are there any hands raised online?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, with that, we'll bring it back to council. I'd like to remind us all that this is in fact a appeal, a quasi-judicial appeal, and that we need to stick to the actual subject itself and not wander off into further policy discussions or revisions, even though it may be tempting. With that, we'll
Mr.
go
Mayor?
to Ms. Harmon.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, before we get into deliberations, I just noticed, or was informed that the resolution, should you choose to adopt the resolution as drafted that's before you, we'll need to remove the statement in there that says that we conducted a site visit because the site visit was canceled.
Okay, and
we
so
need a motion.
noted, thank you. Ms. Harmon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How do I want to start? First, I want to start by saying to the folks from Unite here that I'm really very grateful to see you in Santa Barbara. I see you often at the Coastal Commission. We've been having lots of conversation over the years about the work that can be done in Santa Barbara and the possibilities to support our local hotel workers. I hope this is just the beginning of a long and fruitful relationship for the people here in Santa Barbara. So really appreciate that. That said, to me, I think it's quite clear. I think the vested rights to develop the additional square footage on a plain language reading of the DA is obvious. And so I will not be able to support the appeal today. Look, I don't think that I would make the deal that was made in 1986 and 2016 today, but I'm not called upon in this hearing to opine on whether I would make that deal. It's a quasi-judicial setting. I'm not called upon today to renegotiate that deal, but to live up to the bargain that has already been struck. And by the way, I think there are really important implications for this city moving forward that we continue to honor our word. I think not only are there litigation risks were we not to do that, there are broader risks about what we're saying to not only developers, but anyone who wishes to engage with the city were we not to live up to the bargain that was struck. So whether or not I like that bargain, I believe that it was set, and I don't see any evidence presented to undo it. I know we're not supposed to get into policy, so I won't, except insofar as to say, there were a couple of projects that were brought up, the Magnolia Tank Farm project, the American Tin Cannery project, Ocean Avenue Hotel project, all projects that I was involved in from the decision-making side, incredibly special projects that really do a lot of good work for preserving low-cost visitor-serving accommodations. There's opportunity here, and I think it begins with us looking at our LCP. The Coastal Commission process is complex. Some might even say it's opaque, but the commission has evolved in how we think about low-cost visitor-serving accommodation, and I think there is an opportunity for us as the city to look at the way that the commission has evolved and opportunities to revise our policies, because at the end of the day, whatever decisions Coastal Commission makes about those other projects, they would only look at this through the lens of our existing LCP, not through the lens of how the commission may have evolved in the last few years. So with all that said, with gratitude for everyone who's participating, including to the applicant for being part of this process, and for sticking with it, I will be voting to deny the appeal today.
Thank you. Ms. Snedden.
Thank you, Mayor Rouse. I'm very grateful for that framing, Councilmember Harmon, and especially with your broader experience with the Coastal Commission, because a lot has been discussed about what the Coastal Commission would do or perspectives, so really appreciate that. I'm also grateful you brought this forward, the appellants brought this forward, because it is highlighting an issue that I think is squarely on the city to take responsibility for. I believe the city does have an obligation to protect low-cost overnight accommodations, or, I mean, we're not even protecting them, as was stated. We don't even really have them. And this is something we take seriously, and it's on us. I think, I just want to say that very clearly. I think it's on us. I don't think we should have signed off that the obligation was met. I don't think that it did operate as a 100 bed hostel, youth hostel, low-cost accommodation hostel, but it was signed off on. And again, you know, we weren't here then. Well, I think maybe one of us was here then, but it wasn't, we weren't all here then. And I think this is a cautionary for us that we need to be very, very careful with development agreements. I'll be honest, this is really souring me on the idea that we could transfer property and pretend that in perpetuity anything's going to be affordable. But I agree that it isn't on the applicant's responsibility list to make that so. So absent of that, I think it's incumbent on us as the city to enforce. I'm going to find this particular one especially egregious. I don't want to make this mistake again. That hostel needs to operate as a hostel, as a youth hostel. And I do expect and have heard the full investigation and enforcement by the city, because if we're going to make development agreements and then allow the transfer of that responsibility, and maybe that's something in the future for us to be thinking about, like we shouldn't be separating who's responsible for carrying that out from who benefits from the further development. And I think, just because it was mentioned, I do want to make a comment that this is not at all about the design. I just want to take this opportunity, I think the community enjoys Fest Parker Hotel, and that's where I had my prom the first year it was open, and it was controversial at the time. It has no bearing on this. It's been a part of the community in Chase Palm Park we all enjoy, and I'll just mention here that I really appreciate the renderings. It's 3 stories. You're not blocking out the mountain views. It's actually much less than it could have been, I think, and I appreciate that, and appreciate that you did fulfill your obligation. So, again, I think it's on us that we maybe should have thought more about that obligation and whether it was completed, and really we need to follow through on that. But I think as it's presented, I also cannot make the findings that it's on this particular applicant's responsibility, the further on the hostel, but I'll say it's on us, it's on the city.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Well, you had your name up there. You don't have to.
I'll go. Not guilty. I would share what you've heard so far, particularly Ms. Harmon's comments. I was born in '86, and I was probably sitting right here in this chair in 2016. I know, it is totally my fault. Probably Allison DeBusk and 1 or 2 of the Parkers might have been the only people in the room in 2016. Kathy, you might still have been here, right? Okay. Which is a little ironic, because I can tell you that, I can tell you 2 things. When the hostel opened, it was functioning as a hostel. It had big shared bed areas and group shared bathrooms. I have no idea on the bed count, but I know that it looked a little different than it does now. And so, but also, ironically, I guess, there were several council members, might have been me as one of them, who actually questioned at that time the look and feel of the hostel, so 10 years ago. And questioned it enough at a planning commissioner meeting that the city actually went out and looked at it, and we learned a couple things. One, that it was actually functioning as a hostel at that time, so that might have been 2014, and so it was approved in 2016. But that there were 2 tracks of industry hostels at that time. And one of them would be like your, dumpy place in downtown San Francisco where you're sharing beds with people you don't want to share beds with next to you, that type of thing. But the other one was more like glamping versus camping. And the method of that choice of that hostel operator was to go towards the glamping side. So that a long time ago, you could question whether they started on the path a long time ago, a short time ago, but there were some lessons learned even 10 years ago in the word operate as a hostel that maybe you should have been more specific as to what type of hostel accreditations are out there and what do those really mean. I also think, I've heard all the points I really want to make, but this is like the second or third one this year where we've seen of old lingering development agreements, and I hear and agree with the issue, but you know, some of these are 50 years old, 60 or 70 years old. The value that the city has received in, say, the Parker developments or the Wright developments were put in place decades ago at that time, and then are becoming due, so to speak, for the benefit going to the projects decades and decades later. And so maybe it is a little sobering to see what those look like in today's time, but I think part of the discussion or point we're missing is what has that value grown to the benefit of the city over the period of time? Just like, say, you know, the improvement, the building of Garden Street down to Cabrillo Boulevard. What is that worth in today's benefit to the city when you start comparing it to what the Wrights are moving forward with? And you could say the same thing with the Parker developments, although they're not, I agree, they're irrelevant to this conversation, but those developments all had to be done up front with Chase Palm Park. The hostel had to be completed before the waterfront hotel project was vested. That's that run up on 2014, 2016 approval, and then the waterfront hotel went forward and was able to get its vesting. But those are improvements that we've enjoyed and continue to gain value over time, and they need to be looked at in that lens too. They're not something somebody did 50, 60 years ago and we discount now because we all drive up and down Garden Street and it's just part of our normal life. You know, what was a $1 million project might be worth $50 million to this city right now. So I agree that also probably the only argument here is really whether the hostel, as it's currently in place, has an obligation to run and operate in a certain manner, and that are we doing something about that? I see zero connection to this hostel issue all the way 2 steps back through the waterfront project and all the way back to the Hilton property. The Hilton property has nothing to do with this whole discussion. I don't even think the waterfront property has anything to do with this whole discussion. Clearly to me, this is, if there is a need to take a look at the hostel operations and compliance with the conditions they were approved on, that's really the only discussion point of this that should be taken away today. And I too will deny the appeal for those reasons.
All right, very good, thank you. Ms. Santa Maria.
Thank you, Mayor Rouse. I'll keep it brief since a lot of these points were already made by my colleagues. I do want to thank both sides for all of the research and time that has been dedicated into this case. So there's a few things that can be true. So it's definitely true that, I mean, if you look in Santa Barbara, we can't find 100-bed hostel low-cost accommodations. If I try to go and book one, I can't find that anywhere that is actually low cost. So that is true. We are severely lacking low-cost overnight accommodations. We are severely lacking in the area of making our piece of the coast accessible to people of all incomes. That is 100% true. But it's also true that at this time, it's not the applicant's responsibility to hold or to control the pricing of those units simply because it's not their property anymore. It just comes down to that. Were this to still be in their possession, I think we would be able to find that these rooms must be operated as a hostel, they must be low cost. It would be a much simpler case. But because this is no longer in the applicant's hands, we are left in a situation where, as Councilmember Sneddon said, it is on us as the city to ensure that we conduct a thorough investigation, that we make sure that we identify whether we are getting this end of the end of the deal that we were promised, right? And so there are things that we may want to look into. I don't know if we could look into requirements for when we transfer these properties that are designated as low-cost accommodations so that they can continue to stay that way, some sort of covenant. There's different things that we can do in order to address this very real issue of a lack of low-cost accommodations. It does not seem, though, based on the facts of the case, that the way to do this is through this appeal. And as much as I would love to go and book one of these hostel beds right now, as much as I would like for that to exist, it might not. And that is a separate issue than what appears to be the applicant's responsibility. Now, I will say, this still is not a clear and cut case to me. And which is why I do struggle with wanting to, with balancing what we want and what we were promised. You know, we were promised it's 510 luxury rooms for a long-term provision of low-cost accommodations, and we don't have that. And it does, we are looking at, if we look at the 2016 development agreement, it does say, as condition of approval, Parker family agreed to construct a separate, it just says construct. But here in the hostel conditions of approval, it says requiring the hostel property be used solely and exclusively for the construction, operation, and maintenance of a 100-bed hostel. All that to say, I think my colleagues could agree here that 2016 deal was not ideal. And I think we are now, as a city, left to clean up this mess. But I also don't think that the facts have proven that the applicant in this case is the one responsible for that lack of accommodations. Because, and it's an unfortunate result of the way that the system is set up, right? Once it's out of their hands, they have no control, even though they were the ones that we made this deal with. For those reasons, I will have to vote to deny the appeal. But I highly encourage both our city staff to continue with a thorough investigation of the current Moxie site, because this is indicative of a much larger issue. It's not a one-off, and it is my goal that we ensure that future development agreements do not result in what feels like a bait and switch, because we were promised low-cost accommodations, and now years later, we don't have them. And it may not have been an intentional bait and switch, but that is the result, and it's a result that we as a city have to grapple with. Thank you.
All right, very good. Well, thanks to Ms. Harmon for reminding us to how long ago she was born. I was actually here when we talked about transferring the development rights. I was on council back then. We dredged up poor old Dave Davis out of the woods to come and remind us of the deal we made. And I remember the time we made the deal because it was actually the senior Mr. Parker, Fess Parker, in this very room when those deals were cut to make the thing. There was no, on balance, what the community's gotten out of the entire parking organization has been very much in our favor on the balance sheet. So there was no wrongdoing, there was no bad faith, there was no shuffling the cards. This was a deal we made and the deal that we're going to follow up on. And so it's very clear for me that I'm going to deny the appeal. With that, I would entertain a motion, and the motion needs to include the words, remove site visit from the CAR so that we can move forward.
From the recitals.
From the recitals, thank you. Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll move the staff recommendation to consider and deny the appeal and adopt the resolution by reading the title over with the removal from the recital as asked for by the city attorney's office.
Very good. That's a first.
Second.
Second by Ms. Harmon. May we have the vote, Mr. Clerk?
I have a motion from Councilmember Jordan, seconded by Councilmember Harden, to approve the recommendation as made by staff, removing the language referencing the site visit from the resolution as dictated by Councilmember Jordan. Go ahead and vote, please.
There we go. It's unanimous by all present, absent Archer Gutierrez. Thank you very much. All right, with that, are there any council, community, or committee assignment reports? Mr. Friedman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Attended Beacon, and the big topic of discussion was the Regional Coastal Adaptation Management Plan. A lot going on there, and we are at the City of Santa Barbara and the Beacon region are at the forefront of coastal policies, and this is a great one that highlights what we're doing on the coast because we're getting the same types of metrics, monitoring sea level rise and coastal adaptation, going cross-jurisdictional between Santa Barbara County and Ventura County and the cities in between. It was a very great discussion. Long-Range Development Oversight Committee met for the first time in about a year and a half, went over the NOVAC report and just where we are in terms of process improvements. Also attended sustainability, and there'll be some recommendations coming up to council from that. It was a great discussion. And then for community events, attended the Tales of Hope event, supporting county animal services, and a great event up at Ealings Park. National Rehabilitation Week, I was able to present a proclamation, and this one was special because it was at Cottage Rehabilitation where I spent some time earlier this year, both inpatient and outpatient, and to be able to present the proclamation honoring all the great recipients was very inspirational, and all the stories there. The Children's Library 10th anniversary, saw some of my colleagues there, a tremendous event. Can't believe it's already been 10 years, but it just shows the value of our library and all those supporting, and it was great to see all the families there that day. And then last was the Planned Parenthood 51st Annual Book Sale. It was a great event this year. We purchased about 60 books in my household, so there is bound to be a future quote or two in the council in your future.
Thank you, Mayor Rouse. Yes, I also attended the Sustainability Council Committee, and coming up will be consideration of single-use items, but also is the kickoff of Creek Week, which is September 20th to 27th. And if you visit sbcreekweek.com, you can get a full schedule of so many wonderful events. Just a lot of guided tours and a lot happening there. That's really fun week. Also attended the Coastal Cities League of Cities legislative update, a lot that we should be paying attention to and need to be paying attention to and will impact us. There was a Kachuma Conservation Release Board special meeting, closed session. I also attended the Children's Library 10th birthday. Really, really exciting event, and it's really great to see the Children's Library so well used. I had the opportunity to be a panelist for the Sunday event, and the city was very well represented at that event, serving on many of the different panels, having a booth, helping to facilitate, coordinate, and that was also at the Library Plaza, the Upper Plaza, and the Lower Plaza. It was a really great use of both of those spaces. Gave a proclamation on your behalf, Mayor Rouse, with a local UN Peace Prize to Megan Burney. We'll remember her from Water Commission for years, and she received the proclamation for her work with Unite to Light. And then also attended the Kachuma Operation and Management Board meeting. Big topic on the Sheffield control valve rehab, but also 20 years of service for the General Manager, Janet Gingras, and also for Tim Robinson. And that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, if that, we will stand adjourned at 4:14. Thank you.